The gymnasium was alive with music, laughter and flashing lights. But for Emily, it was all a blur of movement she couldn't join. She sat at the edge of the polished wooden floor. Her graduation gown rumpled from hours of sitting, her cap slightly tilted. Everyone else was dancing, forming circles and clapping in sync with the upbeat songs, celebrating a milestone she had worked years to reach. Her friends had drifted away, pulled into conversations and selfies with classmates she barely recognized anymore. She watched them, a silent observer of a world she felt increasingly detached from. She had always been the quiet one, the girl who thrived in shadows, who preferred the pages of her notebooks to loud laughter and glittering parties. Tonight, her loneliness was amplified by the knowledge that her parents couldn't be there. They had both died in a car accident when she was 15, leaving her to navigate life with only distant relatives, who seemed more interested in filling their own silence than offering her comfort. Graduation was supposed to be the pinnacle of celebration, yet here she was, invisible in a room full of people. The music shifted to a slower song, and Emily's gaze fell to the floor, tracing the faint scratches on the polished wood. She clenched her hands in her lap, trying to stop the tremor that always came when she felt exposed. Her eyes, bright but hollow, scanned the room one last time before she decided to slip out quietly. The doors were a few feet away, but before she could stand, a presence stopped her in her tracks. "Hey," a voice said, deep and calm, but carrying a strange urgency. Emily looked up to find a man she hadn't noticed before. He was standing just a few feet away, dressed in a simple shirt and jeans, but there was a warmth in his eyes that made her instinctively shrink back. He had the kind of face that seemed both familiar and foreign, lined with years of responsibility and sleepless nights. A single dad, she guessed instantly, from the gentle way he held himself, the way his eyes darted toward the gym doors every few seconds as though someone depended on him elsewhere. "I saw you sitting here," he said, his voice soft but firm. "I wanted to ask, do you want to dance?" Emily froze. Dance? Here now? Her mind screamed no, but the words refused to form. She shook her head slightly, trying to hide behind the invisible shield of her own silence. "I know, it sounds crazy," he continued, kneeling slightly so his eyes met hers. "But sometimes crazy is exactly what we need. Just one song, one moment, just try it with me." Something in the way he spoke pierced her walls. It wasn't charm or flirtation. It was understanding, empathy, and a hint of recklessness, like he had nothing to lose. Against every instinct, Emily found herself nodding, a tiny hesitant motion, but enough to spark something unexpected. He offered his hand and she took it, trembling. The moment his palm connected with hers, a jolt ran through her, not unpleasant, just electric. They moved toward the center of the gym, where the crowd had barely noticed them, swept up in their own celebrations. As the song began, a slow, melodic rhythm that seemed almost composed for just this moment, Emily felt something shift inside her. Her body stiffened at first, but then the man guided her with gentle patience, matching his steps to hers. He didn't talk, didn't force her, just moved in a way that made her feel safe. For the first time in years, Emily felt seen, not as an observer, not as a ghost in her own life, but as someone who mattered. The crowd faded. The lights dimmed. It was only her and him, spinning and swaying, and the unspoken understanding that this moment was theirs alone. Then, without warning, a loud crash echoed from the stage area. A speaker had toppled over, sparking a minor panic. Students screamed, some laughed nervously. But Emily froze, the sudden chaos making her heart hammer in her chest. He tightened his grip on her hand. "It's okay," he whispered. "I won't let anything happen to you." And in that instant, Emily realized she had trusted a stranger, a man who could have been anyone, with her very presence, and he had not failed her. Something deep inside her, something buried under years of fear and solitude, began to bloom. The night took a darker turn. Just as the panic subsided, someone screamed from the balcony overlooking the gym floor. A figure had fallen or had been pushed. The crowd gasped, chaos erupting as teachers and students rushed to the edge. Emily clutched the man's arm, her pulse racing. He scanned the crowd quickly, his jaw tightening. "Stay close," he instructed, and instinctively she followed. His calm was a tether in the storm, and Emily felt herself leaning on it, unable to fight the surge of adrenaline. Suddenly, the fallen figure stirred. It was a student, seemingly unconscious but not critically harmed. Relief washed over everyone. But the adrenaline didn't leave Emily. She turned to the man, ready to thank him, but he was already scanning the room again, his eyes sharp, assessing the exits. The crowd, the situation. Something's not right, he muttered, more to himself than to her. Before she could respond, a loud bang echoed from outside the gym. Panic erupted anew, screams mingling with the music, which now felt almost grotesque in its cheerful oblivion. Emily's heart raced uncontrollably. The man's face was pale, but he stayed composed. "Stay behind me," he ordered. He moved with precision, guiding her through a side door that led to the school's back hallways. The crowd was oblivious, caught up in their own fear, but he moved with a purpose that left no room for hesitation. As they reached a secluded stairwell, Emily finally whispered, "What's happening?" He hesitated. "I don't know," he admitted, "but something told me to get out of there with you." Her breath caught. With her, the intensity of the night pressed down on them. And in that claustrophobic hallway, surrounded by concrete and shadows, Emily felt something she had never felt before. A reckless, irrational sense of safety. He had rescued her, not because he had to, not because anyone asked him to, but because he chose to. A sudden noise, a door slamming at the far end of the hall, made them both spin. Emily's hand trembled in his, and without thinking, she gripped him tighter. He didn't flinch, didn't pull away, only adjusted his stance to shield her. They moved cautiously, silently, until they reached the back exit of the school. Outside, the night was calm, deceptively serene after the chaos inside. Emily breathed in the crisp air, the smell of autumn leaves and distant rain, her body still buzzing with adrenaline. "I can't believe we made it out," she whispered. He turned to her, his eyes reflecting the streetlights, serious yet kind. "Neither can I," he admitted. "But you needed to see. Sometimes life gives you the exact person at the exact moment you need them. Not everyone notices, not everyone acts, but some do." Emily's heart pounded. She realized that this night, which had begun in isolation and despair, had turned into something extraordinary. A stranger, a man with responsibilities, a life of his own chaos, had risked everything to guide her through a storm she hadn't even fully understood. And then, shockingly, he did the unthinkable. He knelt down in the middle of the empty street, pulled out a small box and opened it. Inside was a delicate charm, a tiny golden key shimmering in the dim light. "For you," he said simply. "A reminder that sometimes the door you think is closed isn't, and that the right person can appear when you least expect it." Emily stared, stunned, words failing her. She had never expected this night to become anything more than a painful memory of solitude. Yet here she was, holding the key to something undefined, something that promised possibility, hope, and a connection that defied logic. The sound of distant sirens reminded them both that reality was still waiting. But for a moment the world had narrowed to just the two of them. The chaos, the fear, the isolation, all of it melted away. Emily realized she was laughing, a sound she hadn't made in years. And it was full, unrestrained. Because she wasn't alone. Not anymore. He smiled, a small, almost reluctant curve of his lips. "Shall we start over? Not just tonight, but everything?" Emily nodded, unsure if she was ready for what came next, but certain of one thing. She would never forget the man who chose her, who broke through her walls, and who had done the unthinkable. In the stillness of the night, with the city lights casting long shadows, they walked side by side, two souls intersecting at a moment so improbable it seemed almost magical. And Emily knew with a clarity she hadn't felt in years that sometimes the most extraordinary things happen in the quietest, darkest corners when someone finally sees you. And just like that, the girl who had sat alone at graduation, invisible to the world, became unforgettable, not just to him, but to herself. As they continued down the empty street, Emily's mind raced, piecing together the night's events. Every heartbeat seemed louder than the last, a reminder of how fragile life could be and how unexpectedly powerful moments of connection were. The man glanced at her, a flicker of concern crossing his features. "You okay?" he asked, his voice steady but gentle. Emily nodded, though her chest still ached from adrenaline and emotion. I think so. Thanks to you." He shook his head slightly. "No, you don't get it. Tonight wasn't about me saving you. It was about noticing you, truly noticing when no one else did. That's the unthinkable." Emily's eyes widened. It was shocking how simple yet profound his words felt. No grand gestures, no dramatic confessions, just recognition. Her hand brushed against his, lingering longer than before, and she realized that trust, once so elusive, had been handed to her in the most unexpected way. They paused beneath a flickering streetlight, the golden key in her palm catching the light. She looked up at him, a mixture of awe and gratitude swirling in her gaze. "I don't know how to thank you," she whispered. He smiled, soft and sincere, a quiet warmth that reached past the night's chaos. "You don't have to. Just live. Don't let the world's noise drown you out again." And in that instant, Emily felt the weight of years lift, replaced by the exhilarating, terrifying possibility of beginning anew, not alone, but alongside someone who had seen her when she thought no one could. The unthinkable had happened. And in the stillness of the night, she finally understood. Life, no matter how chaotic or cruel, could deliver moments of unimaginable beauty when least expected.